It's a grimy November evening in 1983 Moscow, where you, a young Soviet paramedic, are stationed. As you step into the metro, you see worry and sadness on the faces of your fellow citizens. It has been 10 days since the commencement of the Able Archer 83 exercises, dubbed as such by NATO. These are their largest military exercises ever undertaken, simulating a nuclear attack on the Soviet Union. To make matters worse, NATO's actions are a harsh response to the events happened earlier that autumn. In September 1, the Soviet forces downed a civilian airline belonging to a Korean airline company. The plane was flying over the Sea of Japan when it strayed into Soviet airspace. The Soviet military scrambled 2 fighter jets to intercept the plane. The fighter jets made contact with the plane and ordered it to land. However, the plane did not comply. The Soviet fighter jets fired warning shots at the plane. However, the plane continued to fly. The fighter jets then fired missiles at the plane, and it was shot down. The world was on the brink of apocalyptic nuclear warfare. Then, in 1985, the solution came from the other side of the North Hemisphere, when the American administration decided to deescalate the situation. A new strategy was formulated to deal with the Soviet Union: the realistic re-engagement. Realistic re-engagement was a foreign policy strategy advocated by George Shultz, the U.S. Secretary of State under President Ronald Reagan. The strategy called for a combination of military strength and engagement with the Soviet Union in order to encourage its peaceful transformation. Shultz argued that the United States could not simply ignore the Soviet Union, but that it also could not afford to engage in a costly arms race. Instead, the United States should build up its military strength to deter the Soviets from aggression, while also engaging them in dialogue and cooperation on issues of common interest. The goal of realistic re-engagement was to create a more stable and peaceful world order by encouraging the Soviet Union to become a more open and democratic society. Shultz believed that this could be achieved through a combination of pressure and incentives, and that the United States should be prepared to offer the Soviets real benefits if they were willing to make changes. The realistic re-engagement strategy was controversial at the time, but it ultimately proved to be successful. The Reagan administration's military buildup helped to deter the Soviets from further aggression, and the dialogue and cooperation between the two superpowers helped to create a more stable and peaceful world. Here are some of the specific actions that Shultz took to implement realistic re-engagement. He met with Soviet leaders on a number of occasions to discuss arms control and other issues. He worked to improve relations between the United States and its European allies, who were concerned about the Reagan administration's hardline approach to the Soviet Union. He worked to promote cooperation between the United States and the Soviet Union on issues such as terrorism and drug trafficking. As the conflict in Ukraine approaches its 18th month, could the theory of re-engagement facilitate the warring factions in finding a way to reconcile their differences? Over time, the costs of continued conflict are becoming increasingly apparent for both parties. As of August 2023, the date of this video's publication, experts estimate that approximately 500,000 soldiers have been killed or wounded in this war. Additionally, the Ukrainian counterattack on the eastern fronts appears to have been thwarted, resulting in the complete destruction of numerous cities and the loss of thousands of lives. Similarly, the Russians are experiencing significant material losses, leading to dwindling resources. Russia also faces the potential for internal social unrest in the event of a prolonged war, exacerbated by the Wagner Group's recent failed coup attempt against Vladimir Putin, which remains vivid in the public consciousness. Here are some specific ways to implement the realistic re-engagement theory in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Offer Russia a path back to the international community. This could include lifting sanctions, restoring diplomatic relations, and inviting Russia back to the gate. Increase economic and diplomatic ties with Russia. This could involve increasing trade, investing in Russian businesses, and opening up cultural exchanges. advocate for initiatives aimed at resolving the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The foremost challenge lies in determining the fate of Crimea moving forward. While Western policymakers emphasize the principle that Ukraine should have the sovereign right to determine its war-related objectives, there exists a concern that the practicality of reclaiming Crimea might surpass Ukraine's current military capabilities. In light of this, a potential breakthrough could arise from a concession made by Ukraine. Specifically, a realistic approach would suggest to relinquish of the Crimean Peninsula. Such a significant gesture could pave the way for a comprehensive and lasting peace settlement. Will the Ukrainian public opinion be prepared to accept such a concession, or would a staunch refusal to concede potentially exacerbate the situation, resulting in greater hardship in the near future? Only time can provide the answer. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video informative and interesting. If you did, please consider subscribing to our channel and following us on Twitter and Facebook. We will be posting more videos on the history of the Cold War, the prevention of nuclear war, and other related topics.